You know what? I'm a Vancouver Canucks fan first, but a Habs fan secondly. And I know a lot of fans know this, but as a Canucks primary fan, I gotta go out there and say to my Montreal faithful, I'm sorry. Yesterday, the Canucks blew a 3-goal lead and a 5-3 lead in the third period to the Columbus Blue Jackets, losing 7-6 in a shootout. Meanwhile, the Montreal Canadiens suffered yet another loss, this time at the hands of the Carolina Hurricanes, and as a result, with the points going over to Columbus and the points leaving the Montreal Canadiens' potential bank account, the Habs are no longer in a playoff spot. As of this morning, Saturday, March 29th, the Blue Jackets are in the wild card via a tiebreaker. They've got 75 points in one fewer game played than the Montreal Canadiens, who have the same amount of points in one more game. The Habs have also lost 3 games in a row, and they're 3-4-3 in their last 10. Now, Columbus, to their credit, they're 3-6-1 in their last 10, so they're still not doing particularly great, but they have won 2 games in a row now, with the most recent one being that slobber knocker barn burner of a game against the Vancouver Canucks. But enough about Vancouver. The point is, the Canucks losing yesterday, not only did it make for a very disappointing night in Vancouver, but it also set things up poorly for the Montreal Canadiens, who have been hanging on to that last wildcard spot for dear life the past few weeks here. Although now they are tied with the New York Rangers, the Islanders are 1 point behind, and everything is looking a lot more tighter than it had before the Habs started losing all the games they've been losing. Now, I wanted to use this video as an opportunity to just talk about players. Players who are on the team right now, players who may be playing their way off of the team, and just this overall sentiment that talks about whether or not guys at this time frame of the Canadian season are really proving their worth. That's the main question, I think, because I had been seeing posts about it on the subreddit, and people were talking about this on Twitter. Social media has been buzzing around the Montreal Canadiens world with discussions as to who's going to stay and who's going to go, who's been playing particularly well in this recent stretch of important games in March, and who's just been kind of dogging it, and who's not really playing all too well, who's not giving themselves a reason to return to the Montreal Canadiens. Here's a post made on the RHAB sub from after the game against Carolina. Dominic Balotelli went out there and said this: "These games are proving who is going to be moved this summer. Kent already said it, but David Savard and Mike Matheson not playing up to, and other forwards not picking up the slack in these important games, tells me that these guys won't last past this season. If they want this team to take it to the next level, they will move players whom they can get value for and flip for younger assets, in my opinion. Anderson and Gallagher have played their hearts out and earned themselves spots on the team for sure." Now, I think this idea is all-encompassing. It's not just because, in the first 30 seconds of the game yesterday, you had Brendan Gallagher steal the puck and send it over to Anderson for a goal. They gotta stay. It's more like, hey, when you think about guys who have been playing effective games the past few weeks here, players who are playing with the pace we know they can bring, who are stepping up to the plate, stepping up to the challenge, and really putting their bodies on the line, lately, I do think that the older right wingers, Brendan Gallagher and Josh Anderson, they've been doing that in spades. Now, I'm not saying 30-goal Brendan Gallagher is back by any means, but what I am saying is if you took a look at who's been making an impact on this team, I'd say that both Anderson and Gallagher have been quite up there. I kind of agree with the assessment here. This user goes out there and talks about Mike Matheson being not too great and David Savard playing himself off of the team. And I get it, there are some guys whose contracts go on for the next little while and other guys whose contracts are expiring. In particular, David Savard is only on the books until the end of this season, but we know that he was a Habs fan growing up and he wanted to do all this stuff and he wanted to be a part of the Canadiens. He just has not been bringing it as of late, like he was for chunks of last season and even at the beginning of this season. Anderson and Gallagher, by the way, their contracts go on until 2027, so you kind of hope that they're able to play the way they've been playing recently for the rest of their deals. But there are a few other names that are being talked about in the comment section of this post and on other parts of social media as well. Is Yoel Armia a guy who's going to stick around? Yeah, I get it. He doesn't have a contract past this season either, so he could be a free agent and he could yeet off to Europe or something. But the chemistry that we had seen out of Armia and Jake Evans was so strong that you kind of have to wonder if the play that he's been exhibiting lately is more of a symptom of him being hurt rather than him falling off, for example, in the same way that you could say David Savard has had. I get that you could also say, for Mike Matheson, the opposing perspective is true too. There are a lot of commenters on Reddit that are defending Matheson. Even though he may not be great, he still plays big minutes for the Montreal Canadiens. He has a meaningful offensive role as the second most offensive guy behind Lane Hutson, and ultimately, if you have a team with Matheson versus without, it really depends on the construction of the team around him to really determine if Matheson's role is necessary. And for the Montreal Canadiens, because of the lack of pure offensive talent on the blue line past Hutson, you kind of do need a Matheson, and the fact that he can play so many minutes is a bonus as well. So with Mike Matheson, his contract goes on for a little bit past this season. It expires next year, so there is reasonable theory as to why you would want to bring him back, in my opinion. Like, I get it. Does he make a lot of mistakes nowadays? Yeah, but a lot of the Canadiens are not playing all too great. It's just Matheson plays a lot of minutes. Like, an absurd amount of minutes. So if the team is not playing well for the majority of their games, for the majority of their time the past few weeks, and if Matheson is on the ice for the majority of the time compared to everybody else, then it's like, okay, well, he's gonna look bad. I'm not being a pure Matheson apologist and saying that the guy's still like the best offensive defenseman on the team. Obviously, we know he's not anymore with the presence of Lane Hutson, but I think Matheson playing so much could be a reasonable explanation as to why everything seems to have not gone his way lately. If the Habs were able to just flesh out the D-core more with guys who can move the puck better, if Cayden comes back and he plays the whole year instead of missing a good chunk of the season, if David Reinbacher is in there, if Mailloux takes a bit of a step up, Carrier still does his thing. If you just give Mike Matheson fewer minutes, I have a feeling that he's probably going to look a lot better than what we have seen lately. So, biggest question out to y'all in the comments section of this video, based off of what you've been seeing lately. Do you think these recent games have a chance to impact whom it is the Canadiens keep and get rid of? I say get rid of, like they would need to quote-unquote get rid of David Savard. They could just let his contract expire and he'd go to free agency, but you get what I mean. The way these guys are playing, Armia, Matheson, Savard, do you want to see them back next year? Other guys like Gallagher and Anderson, you could say that for the majority of the season, maybe a bunch of Canadiens fans would have been like, yeah, they're kind of older, their contracts are longer, they're expensive, we don't really see too much value out of them, so if they could find a way off the team, it would probably be for the better. That was like maybe a few months ago. But now these guys are playing a lot better, so I'm not saying it justifies Brendan Gallagher's $6.5 million AAV contract, but the fact that he is one of the better guys who is giving it his all at this stage of the season when the games are the most important they've been in like 5 years for Montreal, that's special, isn't it? And I want you to let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, whether or not you think that also plays a part into this trade conversation. Who stays? Who goes? Who do you think should stay or go? Let me know what you think. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.